Boker Tov. We are Daf Yomi Avodah Zarah Mem Aleph Amud Aleph. So we were talking about the different Avodah Zarah that could be asur, and the one that we were talking about, the one that we were saying right after was what if there was Avodah Zarah that was in the entrance of a city. So then we said that it's going to be asur. We had a machloket. So Amar Rava, right, the first word in the line Mem Aleph Amud Aleph. Amar Rava machloket b'shel kfarim. אבל בשל כרכים, דברי הכל מותרים. So he says, the machloket, whether or not this type of avodah zarah is going to be allowed, meaning we're not sure if it's going to be, if it's really avodah zarah, or if it was just meant for ornamental purposes, for decoration. So he says the machloket is only by the villages, meaning if it was in front of a village, that's where there's a machloket, whether it would be allowed or not. B'shel krachim, but if it's of big cities, divrei akol mutarim, everyone agrees that it's going to be allowed. My time, what's the reason? Lenoi avdilehu, because it is made for decoration. Says the Gemara, udkfarim mi'ika lemada amar lenoi ka'avdilehu. What is there really an opinion that says by kfarim that it's meant for decoration? By the villages, it's meant for decorations. The kfarim vaday lemefechinu avdilehu. If it's by the villages, it's for sure meant for avodah zarah. Ela itmar hachi itmar. But if you want to say it, you have to say it like this. Amar Rabba, Rabba says machloket b'shel krachim. The machloket of whether or not it's going to be allowed is by the krachim. Aval b'shel kfarim, but of the villages, divrei hakol asurim. Okay, says the Mishnah. וחכמים אומרים אינן אסורים. Chachamim say that it's not going to be asur. So says the Gemara, מקל שרודה את עצמו תחת כל העולם כולו כמקל. So he says that if the Avodah Zarah was holding a stick in its hand, okay, it for sure means that it's for Avodah Zarah. Why? Because it's trying to refer to that the entire world is under his rule like a stick. Okay, the Gemara says it a little bit differently, um, but that's what it means. Meaning sherodet atzmo. The Gemara says sherodet atzmo, that he's hitting himself with the stick, but it obviously means in a different manner. Okay, tzipo. We said if there was a bird, an image of the bird with avodah zarah, then it's for sure avodah zarah. Why? Shetofes et atzmo tachat kol ha'olam kulo ketzipo. Because once again, it's saying it in a different language, different way, the opposite way. That what he's holding himself like the bird is holding the whole world. Okay, meaning to say that it's referring to the entire world instead of himself. Kadul, or if there's a globe, okay, shetofes etzmo tachat kol ha'olam kulo kekadul. He's holding himself under the whole world like a ball, meaning he's trying to say that he is ruling over the entire world like a ball. Tana hosifu alehen saif atara vitabat. In addition to those three things that were mentioned in the Mishnah, a stick, a bird, and a globe, right? They added on saif, a sword, atara, a crown, and tabat, a ring. saif מעיקרא סבור ליסטים בעלמא, ובסוף סבור שהורגו את עצמו תחת כל העולם כולו. So why didn't it say it in the Mishnah? Because in the beginning they thought that the saif was only to show that it was like listim, a bandit, okay? But then they understood it to mean that why did they have a sword? Because to show that he's kind of ruling over the world. Atara, why did they have to add in atara later? Mikara savo gedil kalil be'alma. So in the beginning they thought that it's just like a decoration. It's a wreath for decoration, right? Ulbasof savo ke'atara lemelech. And then they said no, it's meant as a crown for a king. Tabat. Why did they have to add in tabat later on? Meikar savu ishtaima be'alma ulbasof savu shechotem et atzmo tachat kol olam lemita. So in the beginning they thought that it's just it just like like a messenger that he's holding the signet ring, and then afterwards they saw that he meant it as they meant it as avodah zara. Okay, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says, Tana, afinu tzror, afilu kesam, Bai Ravashi, Tofes Biado Tzoa, Mahu. So he said, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel said, is if there's anything in the hand, it's already for Avodah Zarah. So they asked the question, what happens if he's holding Chutz Mikvotchem? He's holding Bai Ravashi, Tofes Biado Tzoa. He's holding in his hand excrement. Okay, Mahu. What's the halacha? So it says, Mi amrin al kure alma zilu be'apeh kitzoa. Do we say that he's trying to symbolize that everyone is considered excrement to him? Or Dilma, or maybe who mihu dezil be'apeh kure alma kitzoa. Maybe it's trying to show that the image of this person is that the person that's in this image, is like tzoa, is like excrement to everybody, to everyone in the world, and then therefore it wouldn't obviously be avodah zarah. On the contrary, it would be to make fun of the person. What's the halacha? The Gemara answers teku. Okay, we don't have an answer. Mishnah hamotze shivrei tzlamim hare elu mutarim. If a person finds like broken pieces of the avodah zarah, it's mutar. Matzat tavnit yad or tavnit regel hare elu isurim. If he found the shape of a hand or of a foot, it's going to be asur. Mipnei shekayotze bahen nevad, because there are some like this that are worshipped as avodah zarah. Gemara, Amar Shmuel, Afilu Shivrei Avodat Kochavim. Shmuel says even the broken pieces of the Avodat Kochavim. Now pay attention how over here it's different, slightly different from the Mishnah. The Mishnah says tzlamim, okay, which is images, okay, and he says over here of the Kochavim of Avodah Zarah Mamash. Okay, so we're going to be dealing a lot with this in the Gemara as we go along. Bezat Hashem. Amar Shmuel, afilu shivrei avodat kochavim. Even the broken pieces of the actual avodat kochavim, as opposed to what the Mishnah directly said, that it's the images that is okay. Says the Gemara, v'ha'anan tanan shivlet tzlamim. But didn't our Mishnah say that it's the broken images, not the avodat kochavim? Says the Gemara, hu adin afilu shivrei avodat kochavim. So even the Gemara says, yes, you're right, it says images in the Mishnah, but it means even broken pieces of avodat kochavim. So why didn't it say directly avodat kochavim? It's more strict, and then we would obviously understand tzlamim. Okay, mishum dekabayli mitnei sefa, because we needed to say in the end matzah tavnit yad or tavnit regel hare ela usurim, because it needed to say afterwards that if it found the tavnit yad or a foot, the shape of a hand or a foot, it's going to be asur. Because there are some of them that are worship, meaning to say that it's not for sure avodah zarah. And if we would have said avodah zarah to begin with in the Mishnah, then we wouldn't have been able to continue naturally. Tanan, we taught in the Mishnah, matzah tavnit yad tavnit regel hare elu asurim. If we found the shape of a hand or of a foot, it's going to be asur. Why? Because similar to these are worship. Amai, why? Shvarim ninhu, viha shvarim ninhu. Says the Gemara, hey, wait a second. Even if they are shva, even if they are like this, shva, it's broken pieces. We just said broken pieces are fine. So says the Gemara, Tel Gema Shmuel, bi'omdim al bsisa. No, they're standing on a pedestal, which means that they're chashuv bifnei atzmam. They're important enough on their own, and we're not 100% sure if it's meant as avodah zarah or just meant as a decoration. So that's why the Mishnah said that that if you find the hand or foot, it's going to be asur. Why? Because sometimes it's being nevad, and since you don't know, you're going to have to be osel. Itmar, that's the question. Avodat kochavim nishbera me'elea. If there was avodat kochavim that was broken on its own, Rabbi Yochanan omer asura. Rabbi Yochanan says asura. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish omer muter. Amar muteret. It's going to be mutar. Rabbi Yochanan amar asura. Rabbi Yochanan says asur. The ha lo batla, because it was never annulled actively. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish omer muteret mistama batuli mivatele. Okay, memar amar ihi nafsha lo atzla. So Rish Lakish is going to say that no, even if it wasn't actively mivated, but normally speaking, a person, when he's going to do avodah zarah, he only does avodah zarah based on the fact that he believes somewhat that the Avodah Zarah can protect him. So he's going to say, what? If the Avodah Zarah can't protect itself, meaning it's going to break on its own, so this is not Avodah Zarah. Therefore, it's kind of like batel mi'ikara. It's kind of batel from the beginning. טוב, הייתי לרבי יוחנן לרבי שמעון בן לקיש, לריש לקיש. וראש דגון ושתי כפות ידיו כרותות. וכתיב על כן לא יודחו כהני דגון. אמר לו, משם ראיה, הטעם שמניחין את הדגון ועובדין את המפתן. אוקיי? דאמרי הכי שווקי איסורי לדגון, ועתה התבלה על המפתן. Okay, so like this. We had the case was by when the Perishtim, they captured the Aron HaKodesh, right? And they kept it and they brought it in front of their Avodah Zarah. What happened? So it says that the Avodah Zarah fell. The Avodah Zarah fell, obviously out of Kiddusha for Hashem, right? It fell on its face and on its hands. And what happened? Over there it says that the Kohanim of Dagon, that was the Avodah Zarah of that was the Avodah Zarah of the Perishtim. So the Avodah Zarah, they started worshiping where it fell. So says Rabbi Yochanan Teresh Lakish, wait a second. You say that if it broke on its own, there's no more Avodah Zarah because they're mevatel. So how come over here we see mifurash by the Navi that they were started worshiping where it fell? Yeah, the Perishtim were worshiping this. Okay, so Resh Lakish answers and he says, what? And he says, no, wait a second. There's a difference between worshiping the broken pieces of the Avodah Zarah and worshiping the Avodah Zarah itself. Or sorry, worshiping the place of the Avodah where the Avodah Zarah fell. He says in the case of the Perishtim, they stopped worshiping the Avodah Zarah, rather they worshipped the place where it fell. Why? They said, they said Kiviyachol, of course, and they said the Avodah Zarah fell over there, must mean that he wanted to transfer his Kiddusha to the place where he fell. So that started worshiping the place that he fell. That's why it was still Asur. That's why they were still Oved over there. Not because they were worshiping the actual Avodah Zarah. Rather, they thought that he transferred, the Avodah Zarah transferred, quote unquote, his powers to the area where he fell. Stop. ATV. Ask the Gemara, asks a question, okay? Now, Rabbi Yochanan is going to ask Resh Lakish. If a person finds broken pieces of idols, they are mutarim. But it sounds like from the Mishnah, if it's broken pieces of actual avodah zarah, it's going to be asur. Says the Gemara, don't say that the broken piece of avodah zarah it's asur. Ela ema ha'atzlamim atzmam asurim. Okay. Rather, you have to say that the Avodah Zarah itself is going to be Asur. Vistama ke Rabbi Meir, and the Stam Mishnah is like Rabbi Meir. Okay, that said that even the images themselves are going to be Asur, meaning there's always going to be a difference. We're going to see between images and Avodah Zarah. Okay, now we're going to be dealing a lot with it, that there's a difference between images and the actual Avodah Zarah. Okay. Rabbi Yochanan. Okay. Now says the Gemara. Rabbi Yochanan made Rabbi Meir nishma lehu leRabanan. And Rabbi Yochanan, from the ruling of Rabbi Meir, nishma lehu leRabanan, we can understand the opinion of Rabbanan. Okay. Lav Amar Rabbi Meir, didn't Rabbi Meir says Tzlamim Asurim Shivir Tzlamim Mutarim, the images are Asur, but the broken images would be Mutar. LeRabanan Avodat Kochavim Nami Hi Asura Vishivreha Mutarim. And then for the Chachamim, it's going to be the same thing with the Avodah Zarah itself. Okay, the Avodah Zarah obviously itself is going to be mutar, asur, but the broken pieces of it is going to be mutar. It says the Gemara, Hachi hashta, hatam imar avdum, imar lo avdum. Okay, v'im timtza lomar avdum, imar betelum. Okay, so he says, wait a second, how can you try to compare the two cases? He says, if you're going to say Why? Because you can say it's like a kind of like a suffix siveka. Why? He says by the images, right? What do you have? What do you have? You have a double doubt. Why? Because by the images, maybe it's a suffix if this was broken. Sorry, this was worshipped or not worshipped, right? And even if you say it was worshipped, then what? There are opinions that allow the broken pieces of it. So by the tzlamim, by the images, you have a suffix sveka be'atir it a shvarim. But by Avodah Zarah itself, the broken pieces of Avodah Zarah, you don't have this same suffix sveka. Okay? Okay. ואם תמצא לומר עבדום עמו בתרום עבודת כוכבים, ודאי עבדוה, מי יאמר דבטלה, הווה ספק ודאי, בוודאי, ואין ספק, מוציא מידי ודאי. So he says, and by Avodah Zarah, what are you going to try to tell me? Maybe there was a Oved Kochavim that was mevatered before, so that's why it should be allowed. But wait a second. That is going to be a safek. It's a safek if the Avodat Kochavim was bater, mevater it or not, right? But Avodah Zarah, it's for sure. So what are you going to tell me? You're going to tell me safek motzi midei vadai, that a doubt can overrule a vadai. It was for sure Avodah Zarah at one point, right? We're talking about the Avodah Zarah, not the Tzlamim now. Avodah Zarah was for sure at one point. Now you're saying, maybe there was a goy that came and was mevateret. How can you say maybe when you have for sure in front of you that it was Avodah Zarah? It was for sure Avodah Zarah. Maybe a goy came to me mevateret. That's how you're going to allow it? Can't be. Okay? So it says the Gemara, wait a second. This whole concept of en safek motzi midei vadai. Where is this? What is this? Is this true or not true? ואין ספק מוציא מידי ודאי, says the Gemara, what? ספק אין מוציא מידי ודאי, why? והתניא, חבר שמת, והניח מגורה מלאה פירות, ואפילו הן בני יומן, הרי הן בחזקת מתוקנין. Says the Gemara, what happens when you have חבר? חבר were people that they were very careful with their Trumot and Maasrot, okay, and they would also always be careful to eat everything bituma, bikdusha, okay, and now this person, he had a whole otzar, he had a whole granary full of tivua. He died before we had a chance to ask him if this was miusar or not miusar. What's the halacha? The halacha is it's kasher. But wait a second, says the Gemara. וההכה דוודאי תביא לי, ספק אסרין הוא, ספק לא אסרין הוא, וכאתי ספק הוא מוציא מידי ודאי. Wait a second. But this is a perfect case of ספק מוציא מידי ודאי. Why? Because tevel, it for sure was at some point. Right? At some point it was for sure not miusah. And now we're saying, but there's a safek that he might have taken off the trumot or maasrot, so that means it should be mutar. Wait a second. It's safek, and you have the vadai. The vadai should be stronger than the safek. Yet we see over here that the halacha is like the safek. That what? That it's considered to be trumot ma'asrot. That he already took off the trumot ma'asrot. Says the Gemara, no. It's different over there in that case. Why? Hatam vadai v'vadaihu. It's considered two cases of vadai. Two sure cases. Why? The vadai aserinhu. כדרבי חנינא חוזאה, דאמר רבי חנינא חוזאה, חזקה על חבר שאינו מוציא דבר שאינו מתוקן מתחת ידו. So he says no, because the case of חבר, when he brings something into his granary, it's guaranteed that it's already miusal. Why? Because the chazaka is that he's not gonna delay taking off. He's a chaver. He's an important. He's like a person who's makpid on these things. So therefore, we're almost guaranteed that he took it off. Therefore, it's going to be a vadai and a vadai, and that's why it's going to be allowed. But if it would be safek and vadai, you're right, it would be asu. But here it's a vadai and vadai. Says the Gemara, ve'i ba'itema, or you can give even a different answer. Okay, safek v'safeku. It's both of the cases are safek. How so? אפשר דעבד כדרבי יושע, דאמר מערים האדם על תבואתו, מכניסה במות שלה, כדי שתהיה בהמתו אוכלת, ופטורה מן המעשר, ואין ספק מוציא מידי ודאי. Okay, sorry, that's another case. Okay, so he says that what? That maybe this is the case like of Rav Oshia that says what? it's possible for a person to get around giving maaser. How so? The halacha says that in order to give maaser on something, it has to be ro'eh peneh habayit, meaning when you're bringing in the fruits or when you're bringing in the wheat, it has to come in through the main entrance of the house, and that's when at that point that's when it's going to be chayav maaser. But if you're bringing it through a window, you're bringing it through the roof, you're bringing it, and in this case the Gemara says you're bringing it when it's not complete with the complete shaf, okay, the complete wheat, unfiltered, ungrained, everything the way it is, it's not going to be chayav maaser at that point. So now you have a safek, and safek why? Because safek he brought it in like this, and safek maybe he already took off the trumot masot. So that's why we allowed it in this case, because we said he's a chaver, so he probably took off the trumot and masot. Okay? Says the Gemara again. Wait a second. Ve'en safek motzi midei vadai. What? We have another case that shows that maybe safek is stronger than vadai. Ve'hatanya amar Rabbi Yehuda maaseh b'shifchato shel matzik echad מעשה במצik echad sorry, we'll stop here. We'll continue Be'ezrat Hashem.